Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. We're just going to take a quick little flyover of the work from, I think it's now the last 6 episodes, the Valley of Ravens Run. Can't be happier of how this area has turned out. I think I've said at the end of the last episode, probably my best work so far, so very, very happy with this. For today's episode, I was planning to start a new town center at the other end of the valley, the direction we're flying in under those mountains, but of course the region asset packs have started to drop, and I realized that I have a unique opportunity here to build something kind of fun on my map. Unfortunately, I don't have the assets quite yet. We have to wait another couple of weeks. So I'm going to put off starting construction on the new town for one more episode, which gives me the opportunity to do a bit of house cleaning here and detail up some areas that I've been neglecting for a very, very long time now. Things I've been not wanting to have to detail. And I think the results are pretty good. I found some solutions to some problems I've been having. So anyway, my name is Geis, and let's get started. Okay, in the last episode, I put out some requests for some names for companies in the region, and one of those companies was a dairy. I had quite a few good suggestions. Some of them came a little late in the week, and I had already made some choices. So next time I do this, I think I'll give it a couple more weeks before I actually decide on names. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to strip off the game-provided names of the business. We don't want these anymore. And what I wanted to try out here is I thought it'd be fun to put the logo of the business on one of these grain towers. Now, it works. I just forgot, though, that decals don't actually conform to actual surfaces. So there's a slight bit of distortion here. It's not too bad. And hopefully there will be a way to correct this in the future. I went with the name Holy Cow Dairy. I thought this was kind of fun. And it made a really kind of fun little round business logo here, and we're just going to stick it on the side of the tower. The reason I want to put it on the tower is the signage is actually visible from the highway from here. So I thought that was kind of a neat way to go about this. I'm sorry, at the time I'm recording this, I don't have the names of the people who provided the suggestions handy, but next time I do this, I will do this. Now, I also had another person send in the name of Milky Moo, which I didn't really think suited the name of the business very well, but I thought it would be fun for a company mascot, which gave me a bunch of ideas. So I came up with this bit of advertisement. Just got to find it here. The menus for decals is starting to get very, very large. Okay, here we are. So yeah, so the company mascot for Holy Cow Dairy is Milky Moo, and I think that might be a bull, but we're not going to think about that too deeply. And I came up with the ad. It's utterly delicious. I know, grown. It's awful, but I couldn't help myself. And there we go. Holy Cow Dairy. Okay, and I also put out a request for a name for a brewery, and I got some really good names here, but I decided to go with Bossman Brewery, sorry. And the reason I'm doing this is it's actually a name, and I'm thinking this might be a good opportunity to introduce some like rich families into the region. So Bosman's probably has a family estate somewhere on this map that at some point will have to be built out. Now, I also got a few other names which were really good but didn't really seem suitable for the actual brewery. One of them was Black Feather. I liked the name, but it didn't feel right for the brewery, but it does feel perfect for the brewery's latest product. Once again, hunt for menus here. So it is Black Feather IPA. And these business logos, these were all generated with AI. So this one was a one-off generation. Well, not one-off. I had to do a bunch to get it. The dairy, that was a composite of several. Okay, so in this episode, I was planning to start a new town right down here. And then we had the region packs drop. And I realized that I have an opportunity here to build something a little more unique. I just don't have the assets yet. So I have to put this off. We're going to probably start construction on this next episode. I have a feeling I'm going to build out this whole area. Everything you see here is going to be built out. Behind here into the mountains, that's a national park. A lot of work to be done in here. Now, here's where I'm going to focus my attention for this episode. This industrial area down here, this was just put down when I started the build just to fill demand. I didn't really think about it much, and it's not at all integrated into the landscape very well. And I'd be just putting it off. It really needs some work. It doesn't look very good at all down here. This water treatment plant, I just drew here as a place to put it. We're going to move it over beside this lake later in the episode, I think. I think this was a pretty good location for it. The other thing that needs desperate attention here is this quarry. I just plopped this down. I didn't really think about it much. It looks awful. I hate this texture. Although we're going to get into the texture, I found some fun ways to work with it that actually makes it maybe one of my... I think I don't hate it so much anymore. I think I kind of like it. Anyway, this doesn't sit on the landscape very well at all. It's not well integrated. And when I started the town, it was off in the distance and I didn't care about it. But now it's in an area where it's much more visible. In order to fix this, I have to delete it, and we're going to do a bit of restoration here just to replace it. I'm not going to get overly inventive here with the quarry. I think I'm just going to be using what I think is becoming a fairly standard layout for this sort of build. You know, carved into the hillsides and terrace it out, so you know it looks like it's part of the... Looks like they've been carving up the mountainside. I'm using Anarchy to extend it a little beyond its normal borders, just give it a more organic shape. Yeah, I'm just going to draw on some terraces. Like I said, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here. I don't know enough about mining operations to really, go too detailed here. So I'm just making up out of my imagination as I go. One thing while I'm making it, I didn't realize how large it is. It's considerably bigger than I was anticipating. When you're working on a blank landscape like this, sometimes it's hard to judge actual scale. Oops. Sometimes you should not be using Anarchy while you're trying to work. I didn't know how to fix this, so I just had to start again. So I'm just going for a very organic shape here. I don't want anything too structured or anything like that. Now, as you can see right away, what the problem is this texture, the surface texture, everything just vanishes. It has like zero contrast. You can't see anything on it. Why they went for this, I don't know. It's a rather an odd choice, but you can sort of see here with the contour lines on for the landscape, you can sort of see what we need to do to fix this problem. The contour lines offer a bit of artificial shading. And so what I'm going to do, we're going to embrace the term city painter quite literally here, and we're going to paint in the contrast because this texture doesn't have it. And while I'm doing this, I find some interesting qualities to this texture which are worth exploring in the future. Okay, so all I'm doing here is I'm using the, I think it's the light stain surface just to add a bit of shadow. And with this, we can actually see our landscape. Now what I'm doing here is I took one of Static Noise's surface decals for dirt or something, and I modified it so it had more depth, like about 10 meters. So now it's visible on the side, like cliff sides and stuff. And I'm just using it to kind of break up the surface a bit. It's kind of interesting. It looks a lot like stone like this. And this is what I started noticing with this, the ore mine surface texture, is it has this unique property to it where the surface texture, the rock texture, actually bleeds through pretty much anything you put on top of it, which creates a whole bunch of interesting effects. I think this needs I need to explore this a little more with other things because some interesting possibilities. Now, I was thinking here maybe putting in a darker stain surface along the bottom edge to kind of, just make it a little more visible. I mean, that's certainly doable, but in the end here, I decided I didn't really need it. But yeah, if you feel you need more contrast, yeah, you can put in multiple layers of stains. Also, the color surfaces, the 10% black and the 50% black would also probably be very useful for this sort of work as well. Now, here's what I'm talking about with this. This is Sully's sand texture over top of the ore texture, and you can see the rocky texture surface actually bleeds right through. This is interesting. I can't use it here. It's the wrong color palette. But if you're like doing a desert build or something, this would be extremely useful to know. And I'm doing a bit of experimenting here with different decals to try to, and deciding I don't like any of it. I end up going with something a little more subtle, not so in your face. The decals there's quite a lot of them now, but there's also, in some sense, not enough of them for its. And we're just going to go with boulders here to give the illusion that they're digging up rocks. And I tried the recolor mod here on the rocks to darken up a few of them. I don't know if it's really all that noticeable. The rocks have a base gray color that doesn't change, and so it kind of limits the color range. And I'm putting down some concrete rubble here. I end up not doing it over the entire quarry. It kind of disappears. Now, here's a little experiment I was doing with, it's just a little tiny streak of white. And I created a decal out of it, made it quite deep so it could be visible on cliff sides, and I'm drawing in some rock veins with it. This was just a proof of concept thing I was trying out. I don't think it's the best way to achieve this sort of effect. I think there's better ways of doing this. And you can see I'm trying out the darker surface stain there as well. So yeah, for this texture, you literally have to paint in. It's like an underpainting almost for other things to go on top of it to give it all the detail. I'm starting to find that a lot of the surfaces kind of work as underpaint, like the drawable surface textures. Those kind of work as like underpainting for decals and stuff to go on top of them to actually really build up your surfaces. Now, of course, it's a quarry, so we have to have a little flooded section of it. That's this kind of really cliche. And I don't know where this guy is going with his truck. And I'm just doing some surface variations here around this gigantic piece of equipment here, just so, give some life to the surface, because by itself, it is just flat and uninteresting. And this, I think, works really well. Do I think decals are necessarily the best way to be achieving these sorts of effects? I'm not so sure. I think I'd rather have either a drawable surface or even better paintable surfaces would be far, far better for this, and much, much easier. So one thing I'm trying to replicate here is, they're digging into the mountainside here, right? So, and some areas of the mountainside are probably going to, if you think about how these mountains are made, it's like a very thin layer, maybe a foot or less of soil and roots over top of just rock. So as they dig into it, it's going to slough off and fall into the quarry, and that's what I'm trying to replicate, that sort of effect here. I'm just doing this out of my head, so is it 100% perfect? No, but sometimes it's fun just to try to make things up from your imagination. I'm using Sully's riverbed textures here, and I'm using the color surfaces, I think either the 10% or 50% black, to kind of darken them up even a little bit more, so they look more like rich soil rather than like dry peat moss. And now it's just a matter of building up the trees along the edge here. So we're going to start with bushes right along the edge, and then we're going to fill in the rest with pine. Already I can think this gives me all sorts of ideas for mountain landscapes, how to think about them when I start detailing them. This has a lot of possibilities here. And I'm just going to add a few boulders, and I thought I'd put in some ferns. I'm starting to realize the ferns are probably not necessary for most detailing unless you're in really, really close. They're hard to see. This is Chameleon's mountain or cliff texture from his map pack, and I find it much nicer. The base, obviously the base map textures, I don't like at all. They work for certain types of builds, but for what I'm doing here, the color palette would be totally unsuitable. When I do this, I kind of, the spruce trees around the edge, I get a little too carried away of them, so I have this kind of outline of spruce trees, which I should pay more attention to. I should try not to do that in the future. It's fine, but it looks a bit artificial. And just some tree detailing along the river edge here. This you've seen in all my other videos, so I don't think I spend a lot of time going over it here. It's pretty standard procedure for how I'm building this region. Now I was just gonna just plunk down a bunch of forest and call it a day, but when I came back to the map the next day, I realized, no, I can't leave it like that. I need to build out a little more to this industrial site. And I decided what I was going to do here was use the post office garage extension. I find this quite useful for industrial type settings. It's just a very nice generic looking warehouse building. And I'm just putting these rows down just to, for placement of the actual garages. I'm going to delete these out. I don't necessarily want cars driving through this area. And we're just going to merge them all together into one long giant garage. And recolor them to something a little more suitable. I also thought it needed some sort of office or administration building. So I've fused together a couple of, these are just, I'm not sure if these are office, I think these are offices. I just fused them together. And recolor them to match the other buildings. At this point is when I realized how big I actually made this quarry. When I put out these trucks, I'm like, oh, they're so tiny. Oh no. So I didn't want to get too crazy with detailing out here. This is kind of mostly going to be viewed from the air, so we don't need to get too crazy with the ground detailing. What I am going to do here though is use surfaces to just give it a bit of visual interest, but it's not really meant to be looked at super close. I'm just going to put in some invisible parking here so the people who work here can actually come up and park. And now I'm just going to use some surface decals to make it look like a work yard, or attempt to. I find some of these dirt decals, they have some stacking issues with them that make them a little more challenging to work with. I mean, it's really just more experimentation with them to see how they work together. Now I'm just trying to blend the edge of the grass with the quarry texture, so it looks a little more natural than this hard edge here. Once again, I don't know if decals are really the best way to be going about this. I have to put down so many of them just to get this to work. Pretty happy with how this is turning out. It's just looking a little more integrated into the actual landscape rather than just being this flat gray surface just sitting there. Now it actually looks like it is, you can actually see it digging into the hillside now. Something else that's been bothering me for some time is my region has not been producing enough of its own electricity for quite a long time now. The initial plan for this map was to build hydroelectric, which we're building in the Pacific Northwest. That makes sense, but it wasn't going to happen. So I decided for a backup plan for geothermal. The Pacific Northwest is a pretty active geological location. Everybody's heard of Mount St. Helens. There's hot springs all over the place. So geothermal, yeah, it's a plausible energy source for this area. Of course, just having power lines, the power come from power lines off the map is also quite viable. For cities in this region, if it's hydroelectric power they're relying on, usually that comes from a considerable distance away from the city. So I could have just left it, but half the part of the fun of the game is trying to, include as much as you can. Now the detailing around here is pretty basic. It's mostly just trees and a bit of surface detailing just to, break up the ground color a little bit. I didn't want to get too crazy with it. I can't say I'm really particular, I'm not very familiar with how these facilities look in the real world, but I somehow think they're probably off in some rural area and there's probably not a lot around them. Another thing that really bothers me are the power lines. I just plop these down without much thought. I'm going to come back to these later in the episode and start trying to fix that. Like usual, I don't like all the extra bits that are usually included, so I strip those away. And I'm just trying to make this look like it's like an open patch of field or grass. So this surface here is one of Static Noise's ground decals that I've taken and converted into an actual surface that I can paint. It's dry grass and sand. These are okay. They're not terribly high detailed though, so they do tend to be a little out of focus if you get too close to them. But we really need more surfaces, more variety of drawable surfaces. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting kind of tired of my small selection of trees. So I'm trying the hickory tree in here, and what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to do a little bit of a recolor to it. I find the bright green of it it's not quite right, so I kind of try to tone it down, and it works at a distance. When you're far away, it looks good, but when you move really close to them, I think there's some examples of it here coming up, but they look great from here. Like, that looks really good. And then you come in really close, and then they all of a sudden go this darker shade of green. So I'm a little uncertain what's happening here, but I like them at a distance. I think they look really nice. Okay, now I'm going to deal with the water treatment. We're going to move it over here by the lake. I like giving these facilities a little more space so you can actually see them. I give this building a fairly large parking lot. I don't know if it actually needs so much parking. And this gets moved a couple times during this, so the parking lot's going to change shape a bit here. I don't know why I was trying to make the parking lot like this. In this case, I think I went a little too crazy on deleting all the extra bits. I think I could have left a few of them around. But from the photos I see of these sorts of areas, there isn't really any of this extra stuff around these I don't know what you refer to these pools. They're usually, it's usually fairly minimalist in its what happens to be around them. I want to try to do something here to make this stand out, like, give it a little bit of uniqueness. So what I'm going to attempt to do here is create some settling pools. And I think it turns out all right. This does require playing around with water, which sort of works and sort of doesn't. So I'm just raised the ground up a couple meters, drew in a path, and then sunk it again. So I get this raised section. I'm trying to create the illusion that this is dirty water. So I am drawing in some surfaces first and hoping that the surface color will alter the watercolor. Sort of works, sort of doesn't. Now I'm just using the fence here as a guideline so I can actually see where the contour lines are. And I'm going to draw in around the edge here a concrete surface. And I got that riverbed color there, so I had to come back in with this, I think it's a mulch or something here to get rid of it. I didn't want a gravel bed here. And does it work? Yeah, it sort of. I mean, not quite. Also, when you pan far away from this, the water tends to disappear because it's extremely shallow. The leaking you see there, that goes away eventually, so that will stop. I think I put in a little bit of extra land in here just to kind of prevent that from happening. Now I'm just going to use some of this, I think these are oil pipes, just to make it look like the settling pool is actually connected to these other tanks. Recolor it all so it looks all the same. Now for the power lines. I always have trouble with these sorts of power lines. I never have been able to make them look all that good. And so I was kind of dreading having to deal with them on this map. I kind of had the realization that in the real world, they seldom ever look good. They're usually just like, you know, giant scar wherever they happen to be. So rather than trying to make them look good, I'm just going to try to make them look how they would look if they were in the real world. I'm not going to run them through the valley here. This is just a little, it's all just, power lines just tend to, they don't, topography is not an issue for them. They just run where they need to go over whatever surface they need to go over. What I'm doing here is the hillside I was going to run it up. It did seem just a little too steep, so I'm just doing a little terraforming in here just to smooth it out a little bit. And I'm going to run them in parallel because that's how they look a lot of the time in the real world. Now I'm going to use this gravel path. I downloaded through the road builder mod, and we're going to use this as our proxy for a service road. And it's going to be quite windy because this hill is extremely steep, so it's going to snake its way up. And down. And once again, I don't want to get too crazy on the landscape detailing right here, so it's pretty much all just bushes and trees around the lake. I try to plant in around the lake quite densely, kind of to suggest like really water hungry type of plants that are going to be right at the water's edge. And once again, I'm using some of those recolored hickory trees here. I'm not sure what I think of them. In some angles they look really good, other angles not so good. So still thinking about those. I might try tweaking the color a little more for those. And just using some grass decals here to break up a bit of the monotony of the surface. Oops. Oh no. Oh. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so obviously where the power lines run, that's just going to be a cut right for the landscape. I'm going to use that dry grass texture I created here to outline the service road. And trying to... Sometimes these textures get really a pain to work with. Something happened here and I am missing a bit of footage. I don't know what happened to it, but here it is. So I used that dried grass texture, Sully's sand decals kind of transition zone, and it's just bushes and trees. I have a shot of it in the closing cinematics that get a good look at it, but I don't know what happened to the recording for that. It just vanished somewhere. Okay, so for the rest of the episode, I'm just going to spend some time detailing up the rest of this industrial area. We're gonna get rid of a few of the smokestacks. Gonna keep most of them, but I don't want all of them. That's just too many of them. And for this bit of detailing, this is pretty what I would consider fairly standard. Nothing, all I'm doing is tying the buildings to the landscape a little better with some extra custom parking lots, some empty lots, painted up with some surfaces, lots of trees, adding a few more props and stuff, but I'm not really going to go crazy with it. This is not a part of the map where I'm going to be spending a lot of time looking at. And if it does turn into that part of a section of the map where it's going to, I can always come back and change this in the future if need be. I just want it to look nice, so when it's in most of my screenshots or flyovers, this is going to be something in the background. So I just want to make it to look nice as background. So it looks like I picked up a whole bunch of new subscribers and viewers from the last episode, and thank you so much for your support. I hope you enjoy my future projects. So also, the region pack, so the French pack, I have not downloaded it yet. I didn't want to get distracted by it, and I knew if I downloaded it, it would just turn into a huge distraction. I've been watching YouTube videos of people using the assets and stuff, and definitely think there's some uses we could use some of those buildings for. I just need to think about it a little bit more. And also, I'm kind of waiting to see what's in the other asset packs as well before I make my final choices as what to include in the city. Can't include all of it, but definitely can integrate some of it. If you are familiar with the Pacific Northwest region, you might be able to guess what I might be working on next episode if I say I'm waiting for the German pack to come out. It should be a lot of fun, but at this time that's still, I think, 2 weeks or 10 days or something away. So I have to, what I'm going to be doing on the next episode is pretty much laying the foundation for the new town, probably building out some of the suburban areas for it. And yeah, it's going to be another project. It's going to take several episodes to complete. I have to make some decisions with these decals moving forward. They are becoming quite substantial. I think at this time I probably have probably over a gigabyte of decals installed in the game, and I'm not using all of them, so I gotta at some point go through this and start deleting out ones I don't want. Static noises decal packs are great, but I'm not going to use all of those decals. There's some of them I just don't like all that much, so I have to start making some choices here about what to keep and what to get rid of. Also, the decals I generate for business logos, I have to manage that a bit in the future as well. I can't make custom business logos for everything. I'm going to have to be a bit more selective about it, but I'll have to feel my way out for that as we go. So far, the decals are not causing any noticeable load on my system that I can see. And also, I planted like an ungodly amount of trees so far, and that's not having much of an issue either on how well the game is running. My population is still, not huge. We're only at 65,000, so I do anticipate at some point, though, we are going to start slowing down considerably. I'm guessing it's probably going to be once we start hitting the 100,000 range for population. I think the simulation speed is going to start to decline. And then it's just a matter of how long will I play it, how long will I tolerate it, like how slow can I tolerate it before I decide that it's time to wrap it up. But I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. Now here I'm just kind of drawing in a suggestion that there might be a little stream or creek running through this field. There's no actual water here, and it's just more suggestion on the landscape rather than anything actually real. So I'm probably going to be wrapping it up here shortly. I have more detailing here to do, but it's, it's at this point it's pretty much rinse and repeat. So it's nothing you haven't already seen. I'm just doing a bit of alterations here to the treescape here, making it look a little more natural and integrated. I'm using $2.20's technique here of using shorter, smaller trees higher up on the hillside. It's a forced perspective technique. It's very, very good. It everything just is a little more correct when you do that. So yeah, if you hung around to the end of the episode, thank you so much. And thank you to all the new viewers and subscribers. Hopefully, I'm excited to see where this series goes. I think I have quite a few more ideas left to do. And we're just going to, push the visuals on City Skylines as far as possible and see what can be achieved. I don't think we've scratched the surface yet as far as the visuals for the game go. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode. Everyone, take care.